the theme is mental health awareness. I mean, like, and that includes anxiety disorders. It includes depression. We had a few plays the past few seasons about dementia and Alzheimer's. We have one play this performance that deals with OCD specifically. Um, and yeah, I mean, we had a play this past performance that sort of alluded to drug addiction and alcoholism, but in a kind of experimental sort of way. Yeah, I mean, it's the broader theme is mental health awareness, but it's not just one condition. Like, it's not just anxiety, it's not just depression. We try and pick an eclectic list of plays, like not just in terms of conditions, but also in terms of genre. Because we have comedy, we have drama, we had a sci-fi play last performance, so we have dramedy, like so both comedy and drama. The first play is a play called Dinosaur by Stephen Hayet, who was actually part of our March performance. Like, I think you know him well. It's sort of a very comedic take on fears about going outside and what you might encounter. Like, it's about a girl who's trying to be persuaded to go outside by her roommate, but she's afraid she'll get eaten by a dinosaur after watching a movie with dinosaurs. And so, it sounds silly, but if you listen to, I don't want to spoil anything, but if you watch the play, like, it actually does deal with some kind of serious issues about why someone might be dealing with anxiety or trauma that might cause them to not want to leave their homes. The next play is called Obsession. It deals with a first-time mother and her mother. And so the mom's mom is dealing with obsessive compulsion disorder, and she's afraid that she might hurt her grandchild. And it also leads to a broader discussion of like why she behaved in certain ways when her daughter, who is now grown up, behaved, like how she behaved around her daughter during that time. And so I had a chance to talk with Bridgette, who's the playwright of that play, for my podcast recently, and she actually deals with OCD herself. And I don't think she mind me saying that, but like, because she said it publicly herself. But like, it's a very personal, very vivid and realistic depiction of what OCD really looks like, as opposed to when you see people on the street saying, I'm kind of OCD about this. No, this is one of the best depictions of OCD that I've ever read or have seen read out loud by actors. The next play after that is A Day in Life. It deals with a young man who is dealing with anxiety over an upcoming job interview and also has alcohol problems as it relates to that. And he deals with certain discrimination of a certain kind, like in terms of racial and cultural discrimination, to be more specific. And it sort of takes a look at that. It takes a look at anxiety from that lens specifically, and how someone might be feeling both externally and internally, because the second character in the play is actually sort of his consciousness, so to speak. The play after that is called What Size Is Your Onion? It's another play with two roommates, and one of them is dealing with depression, and she documents her recovery in the unlikeliest of ways by, like, every time she peels off the layer of an onion, it signals how closer she is to recovering from her depression, or at least like being slightly better in terms of her depression, because they do acknowledge in the play that like when you have a diagnosis of depression, like it doesn't fully go away. And the last play is called Bonsai. That's written by Randy Gross, who was actually in our very first virtual performance of Talking It Out. Bonsai is about a young man, as the title might allude to it. It's about a young man who is afraid of bonsai trees, who thinks they are alive, who thinks they are coming to attack him and his loved ones. And I really don't want to give away the ending to that, because it's probably one of the more detailed plays in terms of plot structure that we've had in the festival, but it ends very tragically. But it deals with like paranoia and schizophrenia and like how it affects loved ones, and what can happen when we don't get the help that they might deserve for that. So these are some very different 5 plays that we have, different in tone, different in terms of how they deal with the conditions that they're exploring, but what they all have in common is, I think, they shine a light on broader issues that I think need to be discussed more.
So for Obsession, my play, the idea came from my own life experiences with obsessive compulsive disorder. And I wanted to write something that would show OCD in kind of a realistic light. Because often when we see depictions of OCD in the media, in TV or films, it tends to be kind of misportrayed as something that's a little bit humorous, something that's like a personality quirk. I'm thinking about the movie As Good as It Gets, which kind of plays OCD for humor. A lot of times when people think about OCD, they think about people who are really super cleanly and who clean a lot and keep things in a certain order. And that can be part of OCD for some people, but OCD is a lot broader than that, and there are lots of different types. And so I wanted to tell a story of how OCD can manifest in a different way. So in my story, in my play, we have a grandmother who's dealing with these intrusive thoughts that she might accidentally harm her grandchild. And that's a manifestation of OCD that is, it's real, it's very difficult to deal with, and it's something that we don't hear about or see very often. So that's why I wanted to write it. Obsession is about a new grandmother. Her name is Rachel, and she has an adult daughter who has just had a baby. And the daughter wants her grandmother to help with the baby and hold the baby and watch the baby while the daughter goes out and has a break. And the grandmother, Rachel, is very hesitant to hold the baby. And it comes out that she has these thoughts that she might harm the baby. And OCD is associated with intrusive thoughts, unwanted thoughts, fears of, losing control and doing something. So she's afraid of, if she holds the baby, maybe she'll drop the baby, or she'll accidentally crush the baby or hurt it in some way. And when she reveals this to her daughter doesn't understand and gets scared. And so then they have a confrontation, and I won't give too much away, but some of the truth about this form of OCD comes out, and they end up kind of better understanding each other. So what do I want people to get from this play? I think part of it is about being willing to express our vulnerabilities. So part of what the challenge is for my character Rachel is she has kept her OCD to herself for so long and hasn't let others in and hasn't let her daughter in on it. And so during the course of the play, she does, and she becomes open. And that's a difficult thing to do because there's so much stigma attached to mental illness. And so I guess I'd want the audience to know that it's okay to struggle with mental illness, and it's okay to be vulnerable and to open up and to let others, family members, friends in on what you're struggling with.
So for Dinosaur, up until Dinosaur, I had mainly written comedies, and Dinosaur is probably the darkest comedy that I had written to that point. And it's more of a dramatic comedy. One thing about the play of why I want to write it, at the time I was trying to write a play on a mental health issue, and for me who has anxiety, I wanted to write a play that dealt with it, and I also wanted to deal with current events. And in Dinosaur, I dealt with a lot of a person who is worried that they won't matter, and that they're just going to be, that their existence is just collateral damage on a larger scale. The idea of Dinosaur is the main character is afraid she's going to be eaten by a dinosaur because she was watching Jurassic World the night before and saw someone get eaten by a dinosaur. And that idea came to me when I was watching Jurassic World on TV. And there's this one supporting character who plays the babysitter for the two kids who are at the park. And her whole existence in the movie is just to show up, watch the kids, and then get eaten by a dinosaur in an absolutely brutal fashion. And that is this character's whole existence. And for the character in my play Dinosaur, of seeing this one character and thinking, oh, I'm just this side character that might not matter, and whether I live or die, if I was to die, I would just be part of a statistic. Like, I wouldn't be remembered. And dealing with that issue. And that was something I wanted to dive into. And it was a tough play to write, but it was one that I was very proud of when I was able to finish it. I don't want to give too much about the play away, but the main premise is that the main character doesn't want to leave her house. She doesn't want to leave her room because she's afraid of being eaten by a dinosaur. Because if she stays in her room and under her blanket, she's safe. But the minute she goes outside, she's at risk. And I wrote this before the pandemic. But the idea that the anxiety of leaving the room, of getting out of bed, of staying in your room where you know it's safe instead of facing the unknown of the world, and the anxiety it brings to leave your house not knowing what's going to happen to you. I wanted to try to capture that. So the premise starts with her friends trying to get her to go to this concert that she keeps bailing on. And they keep having to reschedule and get new tickets and change the date because the main character is afraid to leave her room because she doesn't want to get eaten by a dinosaur. And that's kind of the gist of the play. And hopefully if you get a chance to watch it in July, you'll see more where it goes. But that's the kind of what I want to tackle in the play. What do I want the audience to get out of this play? I want them to relate to the characters. And hopefully they will see some of themselves in these characters. Even with the absurdity of a person thinking they're going to get eaten by a dinosaur, they can relate a little bit to that moment of saying, of being afraid of the unknown a little bit. The play is also a little bit of a commentary on the current times in which we live, and I want people to relate to that. And I also, with theater, and such an important thing about theater is empathy and being empathetic towards other people. And especially in this festival about mental health awareness, I want everyone has people in their life who struggle with some sort of mental illness, anxiety, depression, and to be understanding and be there for them and to try to give them what they need, not what you think they need, and be supportive. And hopefully this story about two friends will be something that can hopefully help people think of the friends in their own life who may be going through some issues and what they can do and what they need to help them.
So I got to do an interview with Anthony and some of the other playwrights who are involved in this festival, and the plays just sound really, really interesting. So I'm looking forward to seeing all the other plays and the plays in this part of the festival seem to all have to do with anxiety, different kinds of anxiety. So there's one that is about PTSD. There's one that's about somebody has a phobia involving a bonsai tree, which I think is such an interesting idea. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the idea of anxiety manifests in all of these other plays and learning something new.
I'm looking forward to seeing the new plays and the playwrights that were accepted for this festival and getting to meet them and hear their stories and what issues they choose to tackle. In the last edition I was in, each playwright had a different issue that their play was focused on. And I'm really intrigued to see what will be tackled in this one. I'm also looking forward to meeting the actors and seeing what they bring to the story. And my favorite thing about theater, and especially in short plays, where short plays are easier to replicate and do in multiple festivals in different places because it's not a big elaborate production, especially on Zoom, is seeing different actors' approaches to plays and how they take on the roles. And this play, Dinosaur, was last performed on Zoom in Arkansas, I believe. And before that, it was performed in Sydney, Australia, right before the pandemic. It was like one of the weeks or so leading up to right before the pandemic shut down in 2020. It was right in that February, March area, maybe a little later because it was in Australia. And seeing those actors' takes on the roles and then meeting two new actors and seeing them bring their own background and personality and individuality and uniqueness to this role. That's the most amazing part, is seeing how an actor can take the words I wrote and make it their own. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that process.
People should go and watch Talking It Out, because you may learn something new about mental illness. You may come away with a different understanding about something that you thought you knew before. And you may be inspired to write yourself or to talk to your friends and family about mental health and mental illness. And seeing theater is just fun. And I'm glad that I wish it could be in person, but virtual theater is fun too. So I hope everybody comes and sees it.
Well, why should viewers watch the Talking It Out Festival? Mental health still has a stigma. I think it's come a long way where people are feeling more open and comfortable about talking about themselves and their own struggles and what they're going through. But I still feel there's this stigma. And even sometimes when I tell people I have anxiety, I worry that they're going to go, ooh, does that mean he can't handle what I'm about to throw at him? Is it too much for him? Is he weak? And I still feel that little bit of stigma in society. And we have, with this festival, an opportunity for people to tell stories, to show what people are going through, and make it more than just a symptom or something that's written on a paper, a diagnosis. It's a chance to have actual characters and actual issues and have people experience it. Because we don't talk about mental health as much as we should, being able to see it is a good way to learn about it. And being able to see it in a festival, one that also the proceeds go to support the National Alliance on Mental Illness, which is a great organization. Being able to do that is just such an important festival. Being able to share ideas and raise money to help people with mental illness and help combat the stigma of mental illness.
I hope what they get out of this festival is what I hope they get out of I hope they got out of the November March performances, which is that we need to show more compassion toward people who might be dealing or might not be dealing with conditions, because you never know. Everyone has a story, and if people who are familiar with my work might know, I'm pretty open about the struggles I've dealt with, but not everyone is. If they tell anyone, it might only be family members or close friends or something. There could be, I bet you anything, if, I'm in New York City right now, right? I bet you anything that if you walk down the streets or ride the subway or whatever, at least a third of the people there probably are dealing with some sort of mental health struggle that isn't obvious. And so I think we need to show more compassion toward people, because you never really know. Sometimes it's obvious, but a lot of times it isn't. And I hope when people come see these plays, maybe they'll have a better understanding of if they see someone and they think, why are they like that? Why are they behaving a certain way? Maybe they'll have a better understanding why and how it's not entirely their fault, and they might be dealing with something not so pleasant in their life that they might have no idea about. They need to support not just my festival, but other festivals that support important causes out there. They should support them, because one of my biggest frustrations in terms of the perception of theater that's out there from people who aren't necessarily theater people is that it's just musical theater, it's just Shakespeare. I'm not knocking companies that do that. That's their right to do that, that only do that. But I think there's a responsibility from those of us who create theater, I really do think, to promote real world issues that maybe either aren't being talked about, or if they are being talked about, we aren't talking about the solutions. We aren't talking about what we can do in our own lives to improve it. We aren't talking about who or where to go to get help on these issues. And, I'm not naive enough to think that, everything I do, it's going to change the world. But I'd like to think maybe the people who come see my work, who come see my productions, who come see the plays that have been written by these playwrights, for example, maybe it'll inspire them to change at least part of the world. Mental health awareness has been an important cause to me for years, and I know there are a lot of people out there who feel the same way, and you know, keep in mind that like if you make a donation by purchasing a ticket, like then you'll not just be supporting me, you'll be supporting the people who are involved. By the way, many of them have been open about their own mental health struggles, I should know. And you'll be supporting NAMI. And you'll be supporting, I'd like to think, a theater festival that has been doing good work to promote this to not just theater in New York or LA or London, but all over the world. Like, we've had artists and audience members who've come from all over the world for the past few performances, and that's true for this performance too. And, you know, look, I've said before, we're going to be expanding the festival next season, so we'll be bringing in other directors for different plays, in addition to bringing in lots of different actors. We're going to have a wider variety of plays. We might have some other content that we'll be putting out through our festival. So if you support that, then yeah, you should absolutely, that should be your main reason for coming to see the festival, and to support our artists too. So we do run the performance, a recording of the performance, I should say, for 2 weeks afterwards. We can't do it beyond that just because, like, you know, some playwrights are iffy in terms of, like, I shouldn't say they're iffy. They're worried that, like, what opportunities that might get closed off if their play is somewhere on YouTube. And part of me gets that. I'm a playwright myself, so I kind of get that. But, like, you know, for anyone who can't be there the day of the performance, yeah, it'll absolutely be available on YouTube for 2 weeks total. Usually I upload it the Monday after our Saturday performance, and then I keep it up for 14 days after that, and that's on my YouTube channel, and I post it across our Facebook and Instagram pages too for the festival. So if you can't make it on July 17th, no worries. It'll be available for 2 extra weeks after that. Well, if you want to learn more about this festival and the work that we do, you can go to www.facebook.com/talkingoutfest, and you can follow us on Instagram @talkingoutfest, and I hope to see you there on July 17th.